All right, so shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'll start off by saying, Rakatham, Yahweh Shem, Yahweh Shai. And I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakadash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And shout out to the whole fleet elect, starting with the 144,000. Shalom. All right, so Lord willing, as I was watching this early, and I got around like 30 minutes in, right, then I started over to rewatch it again, and well, around by now at 30, probably like 20, 25 minutes in, and I started over, right? But because this hit me in the spirit, to go into the lesson, Apostle Strumlow, he tell his lesson, you can't lead the sheep and still be a shepherd, right? He went into some great precepts and great points, going into how, sheep don't have he asked this question. Right? So I really went back to this question. What happens if a shepherd leaves the sheep too long, right? And, he was going into one of the things he said, they lack in natural defense and an eternal sense of direction, right? And what hit me in the spirit, what I wanted to go into, right, a little bit through the spirit. I want to read this precept the elder apostle or Ramlad brought out, then Lord willing, got some fruit precepts as well. We'll go into through the spirit, right? So this is Acts 20, right? And we'll start at we'll start at 25. It says, and now behold, I know that ye all among whom I have gone preaching the kingdom of Yahweh shall see my face no more. Wherefore I take you to record this day that I am pure from the blood of all men. For I have not shunned to declare unto you all the counsel of Yahweh. Because what he's saying is, it's in NLT said, rather than shrink from declaring that all that Yahweh wants you to know, right? So he didn't hide nothing. Just like Elder Pastor Ron speaking on, the elder Pastor Harlan down, he didn't hide nothing. It made everything known unto us, right? Through the spirit, probably how about Shem Shah. It said, take heed thereunto yourselves and to all the flock over the which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers, right, to feed the church of Yahweh, which he has purchased with his own blood, right? That's the prophets, right? Teaching this word like unto a meal. It feed the word, feeding you this truth, right? And here's the point, that when him and the Spirit going to this lesson, it says, for I know this, that after my departing shall grievous wolves enter in among you, not sparing the flock. It made me think of precept the way it speaks about it. Says, my people are sheep led to the slaughter, right? Let me see if it come on this way. But, because not only do you have Esau, Edom ready to persecute and kill our people, and things that say, but you have these false prophets, these hirelings, right? These hirelings, matter of fact, the precept is merely paraphrasing. People like the flock, sheep headed to the slaughter, a flock headed to the slaughter, right? But you have these hirelings, right? I'll just go to John chapter 10. Slakia. I'm all over the place, Slakia, right? But you have these hirelings, right, who don't care for the sheep, for real, right? We're in the book of John chapter 10, book of St. John chapter 10, right? Let's go into the hirelings, right? Right here, right? It's at verse 12, right? I started verse 11. It says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giving his life for the sheep. This is Yahweh Shai giving the parable, right? And understanding that's why Yahweh Shai said, in John chapter 14, right? What do you say? Where's this thing, Blue Letter Bible? John chapter 14, that's why he said, around by verse 12, he said, right here, John chapter 14, verse 12 says, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth, it's the red lady, how Shai talking. He that believeth on, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do, shall he do also. And greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto the Father. Right? As it says in verse 12 in NLT, I tell you the truth, anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done, and even greater works, because I'm going to be the Father. Right? Because that's why Yahweh Shai left us the Rakakadash, right? The Holy Spirit, the Comforter, right? To show us and lead us to, as we take this path after this narrow passage, marking our path after Yahweh Shai, or the narrow passage that we on, right? But you have these hirelings, right? Because Yahweh Shai is a good shepherd. He gave his life to the sheep, right? And that's why even, that's Apostle Paul talking in Acts, right? But even in Philippians chapter 3, what Apostle Paul said, Philippians 3, it says, in 17, brethren, be followers together of me, and mark them which walk so as ye have us for an example, right? Because these are the men who mark a path after Yahushua, right? These are the men who mark a path after Yahushua, and you will know that because why? They ready to get their life for the sheep, right? They don't, no matter what money, no matter whatever it is, they not turning on the sheep. They not turning from the will and the works for Yahushua. No money, no nothing. Right? These are the sincere watchmen that Yahweh has set up to watch over the flock, watch over the sheep. What we're going to get into. As it says in Philippians 3:17 in the NLT, dear brothers and sisters, pattern your lives after mine and learn from those who follow our example. Beginning with Yahweh. Do you have these righteous men, right? The prophets, right? The apostles, the teachers, right? Who are back here today, right? To be those watchmen to watch over the sheep. Because Yahweh, as we read, Yahweh, he was a good shepherd. And we mark our path after Yahweh. Hebrews 12, right? The author and finisher of our faith. We mark our path to Yahushua. But you have these hirelings, right? You have these hirelings who don't care for the sheep, right? What is that? Right here again, Hebrews 11 and 12, right? Hebrews. St. John chapter 10, verse 11 again, say, I'm the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. But he that is an hireling and not the shepherd, whose own the sheep are not, right, seeth the wolf coming and leaveth the sheep and fleeth, and the wolf catcheth them and scattereth the sheep, right? And when you understand this in parable, because you have these wolves, you have Esau, Edom, as well, but you have these false prophets, man. You have these guys taking the truth, right, taking the word and using it for beneficial purposes, trying to get money, right, trying to get all these things and teaching these people false doctrines, teaching people the wrong names, leading the sheep to the slaughter. Right? Not caring for the sheep. Now the sheep have no navigation. When these prophecies come to pass, the sheep don't know what to do or what to think. Right? Because they don't have the right shepherd leading them. Right? And that shepherd leads them to get slaughtered. Right? It says, the hireling fleeth because he is an hireling and careth not for the sheep. Right? I am the good shepherd and know my sheep, and I am known of mine. Right? So you gotta be discerned. That's why the Apostle Hart, Apostle Romli, Apostle Hart, on down, they always speak about how, if it's elect members among these other camps that's leading people wrong, they will lead from among them and, come under GMS, learn under GMS, right? Because these are the men of 100% truth, right? Who teach in sincerity and honesty in the name of Yahweh and Yahushua, man, right? They really get their life for this. As Paul said, I fought a good fight. I endure all things for the elect's sake. These guys don't do that. These guys do all things for the money's sake, for popularity's sake. These guys don't truly care about the hirelings, right? But that's why Yahweh and Yahushua set up these watchmen, which we're going to go into, right? Let's go into that word hireling, right? One hired a hireling, a hireling, hired servant, right? A wage worker, good or bad, hired servant, hireling, right? But understanding that these guys don't truly care for the sheep at all, right? Verse 12 right here in NLT, it says, a hired hand will run when he sees a wolf coming. He will abandon the sheep because they don't belong to him. He isn't their shepherd, and so that wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. The hired hand runs away because he's working only for the money and doesn't really care about the sheep. And that's what these guys are. They only care about the money. They only care about the profit. They only care about the beneficial purpose, what they can get. Apostle Romli was speaking about how the dude basically saying, I think his name right now, something like that, something like that. But basically he's saying, if he want to get more money, he got to start teaching Gentile salvation. That meaning that he start teaching that these other nations can be saved. These guys are using it. They're destroying the people. They leading the flock to the slaughter, man. Right? Because when Esau come down with his great wrath, they ain't gonna know what to do. And also when these prophecies come to pass, and Yahweh start bringing judgment upon Babylon, guess what? They're gonna be caught up in it. Right? Matthew 23 and 15, they're making them twofold damnation to hell than what they are. Really paraphrasing, right? But that's why Yahweh has these watchmen set up. He set these people over the flock. Right? Let's go to 1 Peter chapter 5. Right? We'll start at verse 1. Right? And I'm gonna read this in the NLT. Right? It says, and now a word to you who are elders in the churches, right? Because this, even as Elder Apostle Romli is speaking, you gotta, you grow, you come through as babe, and as you grow up, Lord willing, as Most High exalt you, then you become a teacher, things of that such, right? It says, and now a word to you who are elders in the church, right? I am an elder too and a witness to the sufferings of Yahweh Shah, right? And I too will share in his glory when he is revealed to the world. As a fellow elder, I appeal to you. Care for the flock that Yahweh has entrusted to you. Remember we read John chapter 14. He that believed on me, greater works than I do. You know, he'd do the same thing that I do and even greater, right? Because we supposed to be down here defending the flock, standing for the flock. So when you have these wolves and these hirelings trying to mess with the flock, we have to stand up for them, right? That's why once again, Most High say set up watchmen, what you're going to bring out, right? It says, watch over it willingly, not grudgingly, not for what you will get out of it, but because you are eager to serve Yahweh. And that's what we do, right? What and John, what is that? John chapter 21. What Yahweh shall tell? What is that? I think it's Peter, or I think it's Peter. What do you tell him? If you love me, feed my sheep, right? What is that? Yeah, right here, right? He said it 3 times, but I just read it. When it says, so when John chapter 21 starting 15, so when they had dined, Yahweh Shah said to Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these? He said unto him, yeah, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He said unto him, feed my lambs. He said unto him again the second time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? He said unto him, yeah, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He said unto him, feed my sheep. That's what we said to do. And we can't feed the sheep no poison food. We can't feed the sheep no bad food, right? We got to feed them what? This knowledge, understand the truth, the sound doctrine, 100% truth, right? Which how about you? How is trusted in us to feed it to the flock, right? It says, care for the flock that Yahweh has entrusted to you. Watch over it willingly, not grudgingly, not for what you would get out of it, because you're eager to serve Yahweh. Don't lord it over the people assigned to your care, but lead them by your own good example, because we mark our path to the Yahweh Shah. And that example, right? What he said, what did Apostle Paul say? You mark these guys and use them as example. That's what we're supposed to do. Marking our path after Yahweh Shah, ambassadors for this truth, right? Let our light shine forth so that the other followers can believe. The afflictions, the hardship, things that we go through, we stand for the sheep. We stand for the flock. When the wolf comes, we stand right in front of the flock and tell them, hey, you're not going to touch these people. No matter what you try to do. In order to get to them, you got to get through me. You're not going to get through me because I got the spirit of power, Yahweh Shah with me, man. Right? It says, and when the great shepherd appears, which is Yahweh Shah, you will receive a crown of never-ending glory and honor. Right? So you got to understand, this is what we set to do. Right? This is the call we set to do. This part of the will that Yahweh Shah set for us to do. Right? It's another priest that I wanted to grab. What I wanted to grab. Let's go to Ezekiel while I'm thinking about it. Because you got to understand, man, you have these heralds, you have these ones who are going to try to, matter of fact, right? I think it's 2 Peter chapter 2, right? Right here. I'm going to read this in NLT as well. 2 Peter chapter 2, right, in verse 1 through 3, right? It says, but there were also false prophets in Israel, just as there will be false teachers among you. They will cleverly teach destructive heresies, right? Even deny the master who brought them. You seen this? Exactly what they're doing? Crossing out the name Yahweh Shah, putting JC, right? They come with they teaching Gentile salvation. They teaching bullshit for money, right? They destroying the sheep, leading the sheep to the slaughter, man, right? It says, in this way they will bring sudden destruction on themselves. Many will follow their evil teachings and shameful immorality, and because of these teachers, the way of the truth will be slandered. That's what's going on, right? They slandering the truth, but that's why it's staying here. This is the time when we blow the trumpet. When Esau Edom coming at us, we also blow the trumpet for these false prophets, right? For these wolves, right? These wolves who trying to come in and mess up the flock, right? It says, in their greed, they will make up clever lies to get hold of your money, but Yahweh condemned them long ago, and destruction will not be delayed, man. Right? This is the year of the apostates, the false prophets, right? These men crept on the way. This is the year they're gonna be exposed. At Apostle named the year that, through the spirit of Yahweh Shah, right? So these gonna be exposed during these time, but it's for the watchmen to call out, to blow the trumpet for these sheep. It's like for these wolves that trying to come in. Let's go back to Acts 20 and 29 and read that again real fast. But this is a great precept that the elder brought out. They hit me in the spirit to go into this, right? Acts 20 and 29 once again. Right, it says, for I know this, that after my departing shall grievous wolves enter in among you, not sparing the flock. right? Acts 20:29 NLT. I know that false teachers that we just read about, like vicious wolves, man. We just read about them, right? 2 Peter chapter 2, we just reading about these false prophets like vicious wolves. Yeah, you have Esau, you don't walk around like he made devour, but then within, that's why Jezreel gonna start. We was going to see yesterday. That's why Jezreel gonna start in the house of Israel, because you have these ones who supposed to be quote unquote teachers, right? Matter of fact, let's hold that. That's why America is known as the melting pot. You have these teachers who sell out for money, who sell out for all these other purposes to destroy the people just so they can get a gain in the world and lose their own self. Really paraphrase, what profits a man gain the whole world, lose his soul? It's Micah 3, right, verse 1. I like what it says in NLT. It says, I said, listen, you leaders of Israel. These guys are supposed to be leaders, quote unquote. You're supposed to know right from wrong. But you are the very ones who hate good and love evil. You skin my people alive and tear the flesh from off their bones. What are they doing? I mean, the flesh came upon the people. Ezekiel 37, the flesh came upon the dry bones in that valley. That valley is talking about America's lowland, right? You know, Psalm 23 speaks about it as well. Yet do I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, right? Talking about America, Babylon today, right? You have these people tearing the bones from off. You have these leaders tearing the bones from off the people. And it's melting pot, because why? These people are tied up with the money and lifestyle. That's what American Revelation 17:18 speaks about that. And constant. A lot of these people look past immorality and the wickedness of Babylon because they can get money, they can get profit within it. That's what these people doing. Taking the truth so they can get some profit, they can get some clout, they can make money. They dumb. You knowing the destruction will come upon this place, everything gonna be destroyed, and you out here trying to build profit and all that. But not only you destroying yourself, you destroying the flock. Right? You leading the flock to slaughter. But that's why a good shepherd will give our life for the sheep. We'll step in front of the way. We'll run in there with the mix of the wolves in there and fight the wolves off from the flock to help the flock get the safety. That's what we set here to do. You know, we read it. Good shepherd give his life for the sheep. That's what we set here to do. And if we gotta die for the truth, we willing to die for it. We're not gonna let nobody slander the name Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Right? So let's go to Acts again. I don't know why. Okay, Acts 20. I definitely didn't click Acts. Acts 20 and 29 again in NLT. It says, I know that false teachers like vicious wolves will come in among you after I leave, not sparing the flock. Right? So we have to stand for the flock. Now let's go to Ezekiel. Let's go to Ezekiel chapter 3. Right? In verse 17. Right? It says, son of man, right? I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. When you go up in this chapter, it's speaking about how the Most High said, eat the whole roll. When we eat the whole roll, we're supposed to go out and teach it unto Israel, right? He made our forehead strong as their forehead. No matter if they don't believe, no matter if they mock, whatever they do, we're supposed to teach the word, teach the truth. Why? Because as is written, right? Let's get to it, right? Back at 17, it says, and son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel, right? It made us a watchman. We're supposed to watch over the flock, be shepherds. Right? A watchman, right? To look out or about, spy, keep watch, observe, watch, to keep watch, spy, to watch closely. What are we looking for? These wolves, right? These wolves, these false teachers, these false prophets. We're supposed to protect the sheep from these things, right? You got to think. The sheep, we watch the Prophet Ramadan, he going into it, on Google showing how the sheep, how a sheep can be eating grass right here, literally in this spot, in one spot, right? Can be eating sheep in one spot. It's like eat sheep. We're eating grass in one spot, right? And next then that grass can run out. A sheep wouldn't know how to navigate and find more grass in that area to eat again. So guess what? Just like today, Yahweh Shem Yahushua has sent his prophets, his teachers, the system of Yahweh Shem Yahushua teach the word, teach the truth, and feed them to the flock, right? So we can navigate them, lead them, and guide them through the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. Feed them so they can understand what's going on. Man, we overcome this place by the spirit of prophecy. Right? So we have to teach them the prophecy. We have to teach them. We have to feed them to them, like unto the word, like unto a meal. Right? So he said, I have made thee watchmen. So the man, I have made thee a watchman to the house of Israel. Therefore, hear the word of my mouth and give them warning from me. That's what we're doing. Ezekiel 3:17 in the NLT, son of man, I have appointed you as a watchman for Israel. We got to watch over the flock. Ultimately, the elect. Right? It says, whenever you receive a message from me, warn people immediately. And what's the message come from? Through the Kakadash spirit. It's these lessons. It's now understand it's going out through these lessons, through the live screen, through the screen record lessons, through the camps. Right? That's the food for the sheep. So you have these wolves trying to come in and mess up the flock, mess with the sheep. That's when we have to step in. Because we're not hirelings. We care about the sheep. We care about it because that's what Yahweh Shem Yahweh said for us to do, right? To care about the sheep, right? Let's go to Ezekiel 33, right? Right here, right? Verse 4, right? I want to read this in the NLT, right? It says, I thought verse 3 says, when the watchman sees the enemy coming, he sounds the alarm to warn the people. Then, if those who hear the alarm refuse to take action, it's in their own fault if they die, right? Because, yeah, we blowing the alarm. That's why, speaking of the elect, because all this is for the elect's sake, right? When you have these guys you have these people on this account, they be built out as well too, right? Now they gonna believe these things. That's why the Most High made something about. A lot of people gonna believe them, right? But it's for the elect's sake, because when the elect hear this word, hear this truth, and hear how these other counts are going off or leading the flock to destruction, they gonna come from amongst them. They gonna leave those counts and come into the 100% truth. They gonna hear the warning. They gonna hear the trumpet being blown. Well, these guys are bugged out. These guys go back to the wrong names, or these guys saying Gentiles. That's why Yahweh said, my sheep hear my voice. A stranger's voice they will not listen to. What's his voice? Is knowledge, understanding, wisdom, and knowledge, truth, understanding, and wisdom, right? Which is the 100% truth. It's the 100% truth. Not halfway, not 95%, not 99.1, the 100% truth. 110% truth, man, right? They're going to come from amongst them. They're going to hear the warning and leave, right? He said, then if those who hear the alarm refuse to take action, is in their own fault, they die. Bro, that's what we hear to blow the trumpet, though. He said they heard the alarm, but they ignored it. So the responsibility is theirs. If they had listened to the warning, they could have saved their lives. But if the watchman sees the enemy coming down and doesn't sound the alarm, if we see these wolves coming to attack, right, messing up the flock, see if we do that, we don't say nothing, they could, but if the watchman sees the enemy coming and doesn't sound the alarm to warn the people, he is responsible for their captivity. They will die in their sins, but I will hold the watchman responsible for their deaths. And that's why we standing for the watchman, man. So we standing for the watchman. Where it says in verse 7, now, son of man, I make you a watchman for the people of Israel, to watch over the flock, watch over the sheep, which is ultimately the elect. Therefore, listen to what I say and warn them from me. We tell them, get from amongst them. Remember, Yahweh said they're going into the parable of the sheep, right? My sheep hear my voice. A stranger voice will they not listen to. This 100% true. They're going to hear it, understand it, and get from amongst these camp, right? Because that's the warning from Yahweh Shah. But these lessons even going out about it, And I remember even this in the spirit, because Elder Apostle Rumlock mentioned this as well, but last week they was Elder Apostle, the elders, spoke on this a little bit, about how, the guy, he ain't did a lesson like a whole week or whatnot, all type of things, right? These guys are hirelings, man. They don't care. They don't care about the sheep, but it's for us to be mark our path of Yahweh Shah and be those righteous shepherds, right? To lead them and guide them and make sure the sheep eat and make sure the sheep eating the right food, not poison grass, not poison food, making sure they eat the right food, man, right? So Lord willing, right? That's what I want to go through, through the spirit, right? Lord willing, through the spirit, it was edifying. I kind of made a point, but just understanding, you have these wolves coming in, and it's for us to be watchmen and stand for the sheep. Let's read it one more time. So I know that false teachers, like vicious wolves, will come in after you, after I leave, not sparing the flock. And that's why we got to be shepherds and stand up for the flock, man, right? So with that being said, Lord willing, right, hold the lessons quick, edifying, and exalting. And I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, and Kakadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shout out to the whole elect, starting with the 144,000. Shalom.